until about a week ago, I was a little unclear on why I got the invitation to come here and what it was I was going to talk about. And Jerry used a key phrase here that kind of cleared it up for me. I'm the case study. I got to thinking about this, and I realized that I'm the Liza Doolittle. I'm the lowly print reporter, 14 years, who got into this to be a writer with a capital W, 2 degrees in English, member of the literati, not a data guy, not in the geeky part of the business at all. And and so I guess I'm the guy who learned to speak the language of high society and P tags and hrefs and iframes and all that sort of thing. I came to this kind of by accident. It wasn't something I sought. In fact, the first time they offered this job as data delivery editor, which didn't exist at our paper before, I passed. I'm pretty sure that they were looking at somebody else for it who left the paper, and they came back to me and asked me to think about it. And I really resisted it. And about 2 days before I took the job, I told my wife I wasn't. And it was just hard to kind of accept the idea of moving over pretty strictly to the online side. I'm still doing some writing, mainly in a blog. I write a column for the paper every once in a while about the site. But could I give up being a print guy, being a writer? Once I caved into it and started thinking about this data thing, I just started seeing possibilities all over the place. I started looking at sites that were doing this and doing it well, and really thinking, okay, how can I replicate that here? And my mantra became an old cliche: talent imitates, genius steals. And so that's what I did. I took the job in September, and roughly 6-7 weeks later, the site launched. It wasn't nearly as fully populated as it is now. We built it out over time. And it's growing all the time. And it's, let me scroll down here so you can see this mouse pad doesn't like me. It's kind of ugly. I'm not a designer. I didn't design this. And the guy who put it together for me left the paper, so I'm kind of stuck with it, with what it looks like. But you can see it's a lot like a lot of other data libraries that are out there. It's categorized data. And as you can see, it kind of goes all over the place. It's got oops. Kind of the staples: education, public safety, about what you would expect. I'll get into what some of these look like in a minute. As I said, when I started out trying to figure out what to put on the site, I knew there were some staples that I wanted. Crime was one of them. Just didn't have good crime data to work with at the time. That's since changed somewhat. Not great, but got something to work with. One of the things I saw that I liked on another site was, I think it was the Indianapolis Star, had a database of every pass thrown by Peyton Manning in his NFL career. And so Tech football, Virginia Tech football, is enormous where we live. And if anything, if there's anything going on during football season, the top 2 or 3 stories on our website, traffic-wise, are always Virginia Tech football stories. It's just huge. So I thought, what can I pull out of Virginia Tech football? So I went and talked to the sports editor about it, and he said, what about Coach Frank Beamer's record? So nobody would I couldn't get the sports information department to just give me his record in a spreadsheet. But they had it searchable on their own site. It wasn't all that friendly, and I wanted to do some different things with it. So I went in, and I just did a search, pulled up every season, and literally copied and pasted it into an Excel sheet. I got some weather data and merged in weather for home games, and put this thing together called the Beamer file. So you can look at his record of, I think it's about 230 games over the course of 18 or 19 years, coming up on 20 years. You can look at it by opponent, by conference. For home games, you can look at it by weather. Let me just grab the whole thing here. This is really not liking me. And I'll take questions as we go here. Yeah.
How long did it take you to assemble all the data?
How long did it take me to assemble all the data for this website? No, for this particular database? Took me, copying it and pasting it, not a lot of time. The rejiggering it to get the dates in the format that I wanted, separating stuff that was in one column into two columns, and that was really unsophisticated even at Excel at the time. Probably 10 hours.
So a lot of this is already out there.
Yeah, there's a lot of low-hanging fruit, and as we go through this, I'll try to show you some of that stuff. There's a lot of data that's just, I've spent. This is an exception. This website here. This database here, where I've actually done the work and put something together. Most of the things that I've got are things that I've acquired and had to do very little cleaning of, and put out there. So this was an early success. This was the first thing I put out that got really, pretty good traffic. Its traffic's growing all the time. It's still fairly humble, I'll say at the outset here. Some stuff has never really done much. The education stuff on the site, which is a lot of that No Child Left Behind stuff, adequate yearly progress. I've got some enrollment stuff that's gotten some interest. Some stuff is just, it sits there and it's kind of a resource that someone goes and looks at once in a while. But when the site first went up, a lot of the stuff wasn't really connected to news events that were going on. So that's kind of how we got it going. And I'm a one-man operation, basically. I don't have any staff, and what I have is a couple of people in the news department and down in our online IT department, which is a service department for the whole paper, that I go begging to. And we had the head of online IT at the time set up a template for us so we could move quickly and have the search pages all look kind of uniform, but also to be able to move quickly if we've got some data that comes in and associated with a story that's going live in the paper the next day, or even going up as a breaking news item midday, we could get a database up pretty much just as quickly. The problem is with that, and that was an example of it that you were looking at. Let me, I think this is another one here. Yeah. It was kind of a simple box, and you're putting pegs in holes, and the pegs didn't always fit, and if they didn't fit, you just couldn't use them. They all kind of look the same, but to even add a simple text search, so here to search on a lawmaker in this database of gifts received by Virginia lawmakers, you've got a pull-down menu, and I think there are probably about 100 and, it's not the worst thing in the world, I think there are about 140 members of the Virginia General Assembly. But just to do a text search where you can type in a name and hit go was an enormous ordeal with this. So we figured out a way to get around that, but which I'll get to a little later on. The other thing about it is that's kind of the look of it. It's not visual. And what I really wanted to do from the beginning was do as much visualization, I didn't really have that word in my vocabulary at the time, of the data as I could. Get it onto maps. To begin with, and the way I learned that was really going to be the way to go. It was kind of a funny story. Our managing editor had a friend who wanted to write something for Pointer. I could say our executive editor had a friend who wanted to write something for Pointer, and she said, "Well, hey, we got this new site we launched called the DataSphere," and so he writes this thing for Pointer, and he never actually interviewed me. I had a follow-up question forwarded to me by email, and so I never actually talked to the guy. It was mainly an interview done with our editor. And one of the questions he asked her was, "What are you going to do next with this?" And she said, "Oh, I don't know, a map of black bear sightings?" And it was a joke. It was the lead in his story when it published the next day on Pointer. And so I point this out to her, and she says, "Oh my gosh, she took my joke seriously." And then about an hour after that, she came back and said, "Well, why don't we just really do that?" So I went through our archives, and I started this this mashup using just maps.google.com, where you can you can upload customized map markers, and I got our art department to make this little bear paw for me. And I just went through the news archives and found sightings that we'd written about in the last, black bears turn up in town in Roanoke once or twice a year. Found a few of those. My boss knew a few friends that had seen them here and there, and got them to email me. And so I just started putting them up here. I got people to send me photos. That's an actual photograph that some reader took, and it became this kind of cool thing where I was soliciting these things, and it became this reader submitted thing, and it was, it's interactive online, but it was also interacting with the readers, and in a relative way, the traffic on it went kind of crazy. So this was really kind of the early clue that maps are presenting data in ways that isn't a spreadsheet is the way to go. All happened quite by accident. I started trying some other things, just using the same old, maps.google.com. I mapped homicides in the Roanoke Valley. Another common thing. What else? Let's see. Oh, this was another good lesson. More Virginia Tech football. We have obviously we spend a lot of time covering Tech football and UVA, and we have one guy that pays particular attention to recruiting. So I got him to start updating me on where the recruits are coming from for Tech and UVA, University of Virginia. Well, I put this up as a database, and then I also built this this mashup for it. Nobody looked at the database. Everybody looked at the map. Given the choice, they went for the map. So that was, and the traffic on this was good and continued to be as long as the recruiting season was live. And this is good too. And, I'll mention this later, but the kind of, at least in our market, the dirty little secret about this data thing and the vaunted internet that's going to kill the print newspaper. I can't do anything better to get people to look at my website than to tell them about it in the newspaper. So as much as you can match things up with stories, or even take something that you've got that's just sitting there and it's related to a story, get that logo in the paper, get a notch, get a reefer in there that tell people there's data related to this story. Go to roanoke.com/DataSphere and find it. So the sports stuff's really handy for that. So that was another lesson that came from that. And then I finally started getting decent crime data, and I thought, well, I can't, load this up one map point at a time. I got to find a way to be able to upload it and geocode it in mass. So somebody at the paper had gone to a workshop someplace and had come back with this list of sites to use, and so this was our first crime map. It's from the site called mapbuilder.net. You can take an Excel file, convert it to a comma delimited text file, upload it, and provide you've got enough address information in the file, it will map it for you. So these are our first crime maps, and it didn't look like this. I would actually, this will spit out the code for you so you can drop it on your web page. It's like I guess a JavaScript injection is the phrase I'm looking for. So it's in our wrapper, but this is what it would look like. And all these pinpoints have, let's look at it in preview mode here, have data behind them. The code's not here, but they're color-coded by offense. This is all Part 1 crime data, if you know what that means. It's basically serious property and violent crime. And this happens to be Roanoke City. And that's what you get. Now, when you talk about time spent, this is pretty good for that. This is like a bag of potato chips. Readers will look at this and they'll start clicking and clicking and clicking and clicking, and next thing you know, they're at the bottom of the bag. What happened there? But you can't search it. So that was the next thing I wanted to get around. I'll come back to that in a minute. I was just about to go and get our online IT guy to build us a searchable crime map, and he quit and went to work at Virginia Tech. And so I thought, well, I'm kind of screwed. What am I going to do here? There's a lot that I can't do that I wanted to do now. And the machine that he built is kind of what we were left with, that template that we're plugging things into all the time, which was, good as far as it went. But I wanted to do other things. So I thought, well, I can't go big. I'll go small. And I'm always like, if I have some downtime, I just go trolling around the state of Virginia website looking for data. And it's not necessarily, sometimes it's newsy, sometimes it's not. I found an annual report from the Virginia Board of Alcohol Beverage Control. In Virginia, I think there's at least one other Virginian in the room who would know this. In Virginia, all hard liquor is sold by the state. There are no privately owned liquor stores. Beer and wine, grocery stores, convenience stores, everywhere. But liquor, Jack Daniels, Smirnoff, you're buying that from the state. So they can track it down to the gallon. And they put this out in their annual report. So I found this annual report, and it was just interesting. So I used this little widget site called Many Eyes. I uploaded I got this data out of the PDF of their annual report. I did it the hard way. You can get PDF converters that are more or less successful at making data into an Excel, taking the table and making it into an Excel sheet. Come on. Well, as you can see, it says click to interact. Oh, I hate that I'm not going to be able to show you this. I don't know what the problem is. Oh, there we go. So I uploaded the data, kind of like with the map. I uploaded the data, only in this case, you're not even uploading a CSV file. You're literally copying and pasting into a window. It tells you, we're interpreting your data this way. Is this right? You say yes. And you can convert it into a number of different kinds of visualizations, which again, it'll spit out the code for you, and you can embed them on your site. And the cool thing about this is, what this is this is the top, I think it's the top 50 liquors by sales in dollars. You see the big circle is Jack Daniels. We like our brown liquor in Virginia. But you can interact with this a little bit too. You can click on it, and I guess, let's see, and I don't know if you can see down here in the corner, it says one highlighted, and it gives you the total. You can control click, and it'll add them for you. So you can get it to do a little map for you. Jägermeister, by the way, I think is about number 6. Well, I got our food writer, who has a very active blog and a very highly trafficked blog, to put up a blog post about this. And that drove a lot of traffic my way, and I hadn't had a chance to put anything on my blog about it. I write a blog that goes with this, by the way, which I can show you in a minute. And some guy who was a Jim Beam loyalist was very upset that Jack Daniels was first and said, well, wait a minute, you're doing this by dollars. I bet if you look at it in volume, it's different. So we looked at it in volume. Rot Gut Aristocrat Vodka is the #1 liquor by volume. Any bartenders in here? Anybody know what a well liquor is? The house. That's your house. If you just order a vodka tonic and you don't say, I want Grey Goose or whatever, this is what you get. And it turns out Jim Beam is actually pretty good by volume. And this is just, I stumbled upon this. I was trying to find a way to make tag clouds with data that I can embed on my site, and I stumbled across this site called Many Eyes, which I was trying to log into earlier so I could show you how it works, but I can't seem to remember my password. But this is it. It's not, I think IBM runs it. It's not in, I'll gladly, if you just Google Many Eyes, You can find it free. It's a free account, and it'll allow you to do a number of different kinds of graphics. Spark lines, pie charts, fever charts. Kind of figure out what fits for your particular data set. The data sets have to be pretty simple. So I did this for some other things. Let's see. We had a big series of stories. Turned out to be a series of stories on this one particular member of Roanoke City Council. This is another thing I should say about this. I mean, if you look at this list of stuff here, the liquor thing, that's just fun. It's featurey. We didn't even write anything in the paper off of that. That was just something I did. But you can be as hard-hitting as you want to be with this stuff. Let's see. We had a reporter working on a story about how one particular member of Roanoke City Council had single-handedly outspent the other 6 members of City Council with his city-issued credit card. And he was telling me about the story, and he had FOIA'd their statements of economic interest. And attached to each statement of economic interest was a printout of an Excel sheet that had each expense report itemized, where they went, who they had lunch with, how much they spent, how much on parking, how much on meals, how much on airfare, how much on fees, and all this sort of thing. I just, my ears kind of, not my ears pricked up, I guess my eyes pricked up. Ooh, that's a spreadsheet. That's data. So I called the finance director's office and I said, that thing Lawrence has, I want that. And I want you to email me the Excel file. Took a couple hours to clean it up, and it became this database here, which was a huge success, because you can go in and you can look at, this is Mr. Dow here, our spendthrift. And you can see who he's having lunch with. Lunch with Felicia Anderson, State Representative, National Black Caucus of Elected Officials. He must have liked her. He had lunch with her twice, I think. Yeah, there she is up there again. And related to that, I thought, well, I want to do just kind of, I want to show people the ratio here, because that's what you can't get out of here. The database won't add for you. So I use that same many eyes site. And this time did a pie chart. Kind of jumps right off the page at you. And it's all just getting data to speak in different ways. The other thing that's good about this is you're mining the data for the reader. And and in this case, it was also good because I'm taking the same data set and I'm driving additional traffic off of it. You can go in and look at the database, but this had almost as much traffic as the database itself. So I'm adding traffic by taking the same data, crunching it out in a different way. I'm doing the reader a favor by mining the data for them in a way that the search doesn't allow them to do. And again, you can kind of add it up. And so this is the way I've kind of bumped along. I'm not I've learned a little bit of HTML. I build my own pages by and large. We have a web-based editing system that keeps it really simple. And a lot of bits of code that I know I'm going to need again, I just keep those off in a text file, and I don't have to remember it. I'll just go and copy it and change the URL in there or whatever. That's the way I maintain my site. And I've just kind of figured out how to do this as I went along. And so that's kind of how we've gotten where we are with the site. And the traffic, one of the things about it is about the online world generally is that, you put something in the paper and, you write a story and you get a dozen phone calls, and that somewhere in your mind represents some computation of the impact that story had. How many phone calls you got about it. Well, here I know what's working. I know what's getting traffic. And I'm learning all the time about how to promote it. The site itself does pretty well. I'm not sure how many people are actually finding the, just going to the site and looking. There's a guy at, I was at NICAR in Houston, and there was an ethics panel about putting data on the web there, and a guy named Matt Waite from the St. Petersburg Times was asked to talk about a blog post he'd put up about these kinds of sites like mine, and he calls them data ghettos. And he's saying, why would anyone go and look at that? Maybe he's right. To me, it still makes sense if you're going to do a lot of databases to collect them all in one place and categorize them. I mean, if my site is a data ghetto, then is a library a book ghetto? Is the produce section at the grocery store a vegetable ghetto? I'm not sure. I recognize his point. I'm not sure I follow his logic, and I'm not sure it really holds up. Yeah, question right here.
Does the main Roanoke.com site promote what you do? And like, if it's a slow news day, will they like put a big headline that says how much alcohol are you drinking, and like, will they try to drive traffic to it? Or is it a ghetto in the sense that you're just operating on kind of the margins, and they're not really giving you a lot of it?
It's not so much that I'm on the margins as I'm kind of on my own to promote it, and I'm in the position of basically training not only our readers to find data on the site and use it. This is our gateway site here. But also training our staff to think about it, so that if they're off on a story and they see there's a data angle to it, or they see that there's some data associated with the story, instead of just, like that one guy who got the statements of economic interest, didn't occur to him to ask for that in an Excel file and give it to me. It's training them to think that way. As far as in just a second. As far as the promotion goes, I use my blog for that as much as I can. My blog is not terribly heavily trafficked. It's about data, after all. But the most important thing I do on my blog is write posts about the new data that I've got on the site, and to write really good headlines on my entries, because those headlines appear right here, and that's on our gateway. The other thing on our gateway page is this little section down here. It seems kind of buried and anonymous. It makes an enormous difference. If I put something out here, when I put up something, make it live, it appears here, and I can watch the traffic go. And then, as I said, getting it in the newspaper. So I spend a lot of time. I go to all of our budget meetings. I go to all of our weekly planning meetings, and to just stay in people's ear, to look for stories that I can add data to. I try to be kind of a one-man service department. And I look for opportunities to promote data that I've already got that's just sitting there. If there's been a homicide that day, well, we're going to have my logo in the paper telling people about our homicide map the next day, again. But I'm still kind of training them, and I'll come back to you, and I had a question over here.
Related question, actually, for all the new databases you collect, how often is it because a reporter comes to you and says, hey, Matt, I've got great data. How often is you're stalking a reporter and saying, did you get data with that story?
How often do the reporters come to me, and how often do I go to the reporters and stalk them is the question. I'm repeating the questions cleverly so that they are recorded. It's more the latter than the former right now. Still a learning process, but it's coming around. One great success in that area. Let me still out here on the. No, it's not. This is this is an example where you talk about like the gentleman earlier was saying. Is this journalism? Are there stories in this? Hell yeah. This is one where, come on. our columnist, our Metro columnist, was working on a story about a guy who was cleaning up an old graveyard in Roanoke. It was, if not Roanoke's first private black cemetery before integration, it was certainly the biggest. No one had been buried in it since 1979. It was completely overgrown. And so this guy, who was the retired municipal auditor for the city of Roanoke, just a meticulous data guy, starts cleaning up with his Boy Scout troop, starts cleaning up this graveyard. And he just can't help himself. He starts documenting everything he finds in an Excel sheet. And so I don't know if it was Shauna, the columnist, or her editor who thought of me, but they said, hey, there's a data angle to this column. So I got the guy to email me his Excel sheet, and it was amazing what this guy was doing. There are about 1,000 graves in the cemetery. He's identified 290 of them. This is only part of what he's collected. So you do a search here, and this is everything in the database practically. And you're going to get last name, first name, middle initial, birth year, death year. But then you go to the details. Let's see if I get a good one here. Go to the details, and it's going to tell you what kind of grave marker, oh, this is not a great one, who the mortician was, and every character on every line of the grave marker. And so I sure wish I'd remembered some of the good ones here. There are a couple where there's one where the mother, there are a number of people from the same family there. The mother dies in like 1948. Her headstone has all the usual stuff, and the last line is, till we meet again. 2 years later, her daughter dies. Last line of hers, I will follow. That's a database, and that's a story. And people went nuts with this. More traffic than anything I had up to that point by like times 3. And that's one of the, I've kind of got a list of lessons that I've tried to pull out of this that I've learned as I go along. Man, if you can get data that's got names in it, that's personal, that's human, where people can look up something about somebody they know or might know or a relative or something like that, it's going to have more interest than just numbers. The numbers are good too. I mean, I put up data on the top polluters in Virginia, very well trafficked. And we spent almost no time covering the environment in my paper. But we wrote a story about that. It got pretty good play. The database is still going strong. It's, these things have kind of, they'll spike for a while, and then they'll kind of fizzle. That thing's still getting, I think it was #2 in traffic this week, and it's been up like 3 weeks. So that's an exception. But things with numbers, things that can tell, are good. Things with people in them are generally better. Do think about shelf life. Some things are resources that are just going to kind of sit there and people are going to use them periodically. I built a mashup of where to park of off-street parking in downtown Roanoke. Parking is this deathless issue in Roanoke. Everybody in Roanoke wants to park right in front of where they're going, and they want to do it for free. And so they will not pay at a surface lot. They don't want to park in a garage. They want to pull up like they do at the mall. And they want to do this in downtown Roanoke. So I did a map of all the, it was really this, I was trying to like do some appeasement. I was getting the parking ticket data out of the city, and they were like, well, you're just going to map this and tell people where they're going to get parking tickets. And I'm like, well, yeah. And they're like, well, we're trying to, get people away from that kind of fear coming downtown. And I said, well, okay, I'll do this mashup for you. So I did a mashup of where all the off-street parking lots are in downtown. It was a total pain. It took me forever. Doesn't get a ton of traffic. It's a good resource. It sits there. I'm not going to take it down. 15, 20 people look at it a week or something like that. It's great for those 15 people. I'll get to you. But, I put a lot of time into that, not a lot of return. As much as I can, I try to just find things that are there that are pretty clean, or if I can do a simple merge, use access to join a couple of tables and make one good database out of them, or get the folks down on online IT to do it for me. I'll do that. Yeah, question?
How often do you update this data? I mean, for police reporting, are you cleaning data
That's an excellent question. How often am I going in and refreshing individual databases, and then also how often am I putting new data on the site? I try to, for a while I had a pretty good success rate getting up at least 1 or 2 new data items on the site a week. But I'm kind of at the bottom of the barrel there. I'm being more selective. I'm doing more. I've got less time, so I'm having to be more selective, and I'm getting better at targeting what is going to work. And pretty much everything I've put up here in the last 3 or 4 weeks has had really good success comparatively. Again, traffic's fairly humble, but I'm learning to hit the target. Crime data, which we are doing now. You can probably tell looking at this. There's a session later in the week from Caspio. We subscribe to Caspio. I don't want to sit in here and pimp a commercial service, but it's been great for me because I no longer have to go to the online IT department. When you see how Caspio works, it'll blow your mind what a moron you can be and use Caspio and put data on the web. It's a series of wizards. I mean, it's like it's equivalent to about like setting up your printer, and you're putting data on your website that's searchable. Mashups that are searchable are really easy. I spend, to come back to your question, Tuesday is crime data day. It just so happens that all 3 of the localities that I get crime data from, I get it on Tuesday. So it takes me a couple hours to clean the data. It's kind of a pain. It comes in different forms. I get it emailed to me from Roanoke City. There's this whole issue with the quadrants in the city, and they post it on the web, but they send me a special file that has some other information attached to it. Roanoke County, I get it in a PDF. Salem, emails, a Word file. And so putting all that into one place is kind of a pain. Caspio wants the dates to make it searchable by date. Date's got to be in a certain format. If anybody here knows a shortcut to this, please tell me, because the best way I've found to do it is to convert it to English language, Philippines, and that's the only thing in Excel that I can find that will give me the date format that Caspio wants. Why they would want something that is that obscure? I'm using, I think, Excel 2003, so maybe that's my problem. So I'm updating that weekly. Things that update frequently behave differently with readers. Traffic on these never really spikes, but it's also really steady. Other things, I'm not doing real estate data yet, but when I get there on that, that's going to be more of a monthly operation. And there doesn't seem to be any, in those kinds of things, there doesn't seem to be any spike even on the update day. They're just steady. Did that answer your question? Yeah. You had another question, Ron?
You were asking an easier way to convert dates.
Oh.
In Excel, why don't you put in a second column next to the first one, copy the dates into that second column, then go up to format and change the format of the second column to whatever you want.
Well, I'm changing the format, but what happens is when you upload it to Caspio, it's seeing the coding behind it. So you're only, when you...
Well, in that case, what you do is copy and paste special.
Oh, okay, I didn't know about that. What I do is I just copy it out to a text file, change the formatting to text, paste it back in, takes care of it. Takes about 20 seconds. That's a conversation for after, though. How are we doing on time here? What do we have, 4:15?
Question about, is Caspio, I was going to ask about your search function.
Yeah.
What you're using. Is that Caspio?
That's in Caspio there, yeah.
So all your searches with those boxes are done in Caspio?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think it's Ed Garcia from Caspio that's here. He's been really good with support for me, and it's a really easy thing to use. I started using it, put my first thing together without even going through the tutorials I have online. Yeah, Alan.
Are there other tools other than Map Builder and Maniac that you use?
Yeah, there's a lot of them out there. There's another one, you can't really do, do I have it up here? Oh, here we go. This one you can't do as much with. This is kind of a funky site. It's called Swivel. It's like a social networking site around data. It's really kind of nerdy, but it's the same kind of thing. Set up a free account, upload your data. The cool thing that it will do is it'll make a tag cloud from data, not just from text, but they don't have it built in yet to spit out the code for it, so you can put that tag cloud on your site yet. Those are kind of the three main ones I use. And I found all these just off Google searches, just sniffing around. There's another one called FM Atlas that will, if you want to do one where you allow readers to put points on the map, we've used that before. The thing about mashups that's really cool, I think Jerry wanted me to show you this one. I didn't do this. It was our first snow of the year, and I was stuck at home. And Meg, one of our multimedia people, who's could probably do my job a lot better than me, was she allowed to? Started soliciting. We solicit photos from readers and all kinds of stuff like that online. She started soliciting stuff related to the first snow. Measure the snow in your yard, all that kind of stuff. She put this together, and she was just, as they came in, she was plotting these by hand. There's kind of a mix of, let's see, what is this one? That one's National Weather Service. She probably went and got that herself. I don't know where they are. Somewhere in here there are photos submitted by, there's a measurement submitted by a reader. This was one of the most viewed things on our website that day. Readers ate it up. I've kind of got this idea that I want to blog on a map. I want to take an event that's kind of rangy and spread out and just let reporters feed me stuff. And instead of just, we do like breaking news blogs, like during the tech shooting. Tech is 40 minutes up the road from us. And so we just set up a take where reporters were feeding stuff to a guy who was sitting there at the end of the phone, and he was putting up breaking news posts. And it was everything from, here's a summary from this news conference, or here's an interview with this person who witnessed this, to just color, just scenes here and there. I want to put that on a map. If the right event lent itself to it, take those things and don't just put them in a thing that people are going to scroll up and down. Stick them on a map. Let photographers send you photos. And that way you're giving all that information a geographic interface.
Can I ask you about that map?
Yes.
It was not automated. She had to put in every point.
Yeah, she did. And
she. Maine, and we thought it was snowfall map, but we had so much snowfall.
Yeah.
You don't have a person who could do that.
And you know what? And we didn't get to do this again. It didn't snow anymore. So yeah, the question was, did she do these individually by hand? And the answer was yes, she did. The next time we tried to do it, she used FM Atlas. And the interface on that seemed to have confused readers. They didn't post as much as we would have done ourselves, so it wasn't as successful. And the other thing, another thing that we're moving towards, we don't have it live yet. We're killing out our little neighborhood tabloids and revamping them so that they're more targeted. And one of the things that lived in there was all these listings for people who need, organizations that need volunteers, support group listings, or like a bazillion support groups. And that content's not going to be in print anymore. And so I said, well, let's collect it online. And so we used Caspio to build a web form where the people who want the listings in can go in and enter the listings. That populates a database that's searchable on the other end for people who are looking for a support group. It doesn't take all the labor out of it for us. We'll have to go in and kill out the old ones periodically. There are ways to get data from readers and it gets people interacting with what you're doing. Let me look at some other.
Expect to approve that content before it goes into the database?
That's an excellent question, and it kind of raises the whole question of ethics around this stuff. So I'll just kind of segue to that. No. I think we'll look at it periodically. We're just going to have to police it and make sure people aren't doing. And the one thing that we will do, now here's the answer to your question. I forgot we decided to do this. In Caspio, you could set up a notify email. So anytime someone makes a submission, the content of their submission will be emailed to an editor. And if it's, spam or junk or obscene, we can just go in and kill it out.
How's that? Can you personally go in and kill that, or do you have to work with Caspio to actually?
Oh, I can do it. One of the things you'll see with Caspio is that you pretty much have, your data lives on their site, but you have complete control of it. They're not, I haven't had any problems with them messing with my data yet. The ethics around this are a little bit sketchy still. There's a tendency to think, we can put this on the web, let's do it, and without really grasping the enormity of it. And someone pointed out, there was Mr. Overberg over there may have been in this in the room at NICAR. There was a panel discussion on the ethics of putting data on the web, and that was kind of the repeated refrain of should you do it just because you can? And it's interesting because after spending all of our lives and whole careers of people trying to get more information out of government, we're now in the position of getting enormous amounts of information out of the government and going, wait a minute, do we really want to put all this out there? The thing that seems to blow up on people and spark the most conversation about the ethics of putting data online is state salary databases. I don't have it on the site. I got it. I got it for one branch of government, which amounts to about 85% of the employees in Virginia. But I haven't pulled the trigger on it. I haven't put it out there because I don't have the judicial branch and I don't have the legislative branch. If I had that, then I'd really have to rethink it. I don't think I'm ever going to get it because in the legislative branch I'd have to call 8 different human resource offices to get it. But at the same time, part of me just doesn't feel right about, taking the custodian at the Library of Virginia and throwing him under the bus with the president of Virginia Tech because he makes $500,000 and people want to know. Yeah, it's public information. Yeah, it's a great internal resource. I'm not sure. Obviously I don't feel comfortable putting it out there. So again, and then the other thing is that the enormity of the database, you can't always tell what you've got. I was really considering putting this out there, and I was showing it to our managing editor, and he said, well, who makes the most? And I showed him, and he's like, well, that's Charles Steger. That's the president of Virginia Tech. Where's John Castine, the president of UVA? Because Castine's got to be making more money. I'm like, wow, he's not in there. Turns out none of the University of Virginia employees were in the database. And we just, discovered it on a fluke. So, again, be careful. I've been lucky to work with smaller chunks of data where